Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tavern. It's time for some more mythology here at Tavern Tales. Today, we're looking at the zodiac sign of Virgo. It is primarily a September birth sign, and it is an earth type like the Taurus, making it the second earth type of the whole zodiac. Thus, expect a little bit of stubbornness and groundedness that allow this sign to represent that type of stability that other signs sometimes seek. So, without further ado, let's take a look at the astrology behind the sign of Virgo. Virgo has a lot of positives. They are hard workers, they're patient, detail-oriented, perfectionists who oftentimes strive for self-improvement and can show kindness to those they've grown close to. However, a lot of the positives also equal negatives when it comes to the Virgo. Virgos can be very, very judgmental of other people. They can be very much set in their ways, oftentimes being stubborn, very picky about things. They want it to be their way, their thing, that's it. They can oftentimes be cold towards people or even push them away. And they are very, very nitpicky when it comes to stuff. These kinds of things make it very difficult for them to have relationships. However, if people work things out with their personal Virgo friend or lover or whatever, then they can show a lot of deep kindness, love, and support. But getting to that stage is not easy. Virgos are perhaps the most difficult of the earth signs to really get along with. So Virgos out there, just keep those notes in mind when you think about your next stage in your self-improvement. But all right, enough of the astrology. Let's get to the reason why you are here, the mythology. And boy, is there a lot. This is one of those signs where there's a lot of mixed up information. So I'm going to have to give you 3 different stories this time. 3. No one can agree on what Virgo represents. Why? Well, first we'll go to the eldest story. This is the story of Astraea. Astraea is the goddess who oftentimes represents justice and purity. Depending on the era in which her story is told, she is either the daughter of Astraeus and Eos, Astraeus being the god of the winds and the sky, and Eos being the goddess of the dawn. Which doesn't make a lot of sense. Or Zeus and Themis. And Zeus, of course, being the king of the gods, god of thunder, and Themis being a goddess who represents justice. Thus, the justice trait kind of gets passed down through the generations, apparently. Either way, her story comes to a time period called the Golden Age of Humanity. This is an age in which humans were basically pure and good. There was no evil in the world. The gods lived amongst the humans. But then we have Pandora. Zeus saw Pandora and believed she was quite beautiful, as Zeus tends to find a lot of women beautiful, and in the process gives her a gift to win her love, a golden, shining, beautiful box. And he says, this box is yours, but never open it. Only admire its beauty, for what is inside doesn't matter, only the exterior beauty matters. Well, human curiosity is a terrible thing sometimes, and Pandora opens up the box, releasing all the evils and corruption of humanity. As this starts, most of the gods go, I'm out! And they run to Mount Olympus to get away from the slowly corrupting and destructive humans. As each of the gods flees, humanity gets more and more corrupt, more and more evil, more and more destructive. But Astraea believes in humanity and stays there, trying to provide them with a sense of hope, a sense of justice, and a sense of purity, fighting against the stem of chaos and anarchy that is taking over humankind. Eventually, she realizes her efforts are in vain and leaves humanity as the last god to leave humans behind. She is brought up into the stars and transformed into the constellation of Virgo, where she watches over humanity in hopes that humanity become better, and then so she can return and bring humanity into a new golden age. Now, a lot of those end parts of that myth do tie into the Renaissance era, which might explain a few things, as obviously there'd be some influence from the Christians and some messianic beliefs that would obviously talk about the returning of a holy figure to make humanity better. Thus, the Astraea story might be a later version of the story, but since it takes place in the Golden Age of humanity, I considered it the first of the stories. The second story is perhaps the most plausible answer for the existence of Virgo. And this is the story of Persephone. Persephone is the daughter of Demeter. Demeter is the goddess of the harvest. She oftentimes represents nature and motherly love. Her daughter Persephone was beautiful and would always be surrounded by flowers. She is the goddess of spring. One day, Hades had left the underworld to take a break from all his work and all his stress. And Eros, the son of Aphrodite, who many people would know under the Roman name of Cupid, took out his bow, fired off an arrow on Hades to try to bring some love into his life, or to cause chaos. It's kind of hard to tell. Either way, Hades gets struck by the arrow, sees Persephone, and is head over heels for her. He sweeps her off her feet and takes her back to the underworld to make her his queen. And here's something that always annoys me about a lot of people's retellings of this. Hades is devoted to his bride. He loves her above all things. He will give her anything she wants. He treats her with respect. He never cheats on her or treats her bad. Persephone, in exchange, is super happy to have a man that devoted to her, to treat her that well, and to make her feel like a queen and a goddess. However, Demeter gets sad. She misses her daughter. She feels empty without her around, and the world starts to suffer for this. The harvest fails. Winter starts just stretching on and on and on. Nothing is growing. Humanity might die off. And Persephone sees the suffering of her mother and the suffering of humanity and says, dear husband, I can't stand to see them suffer. Please let me console my mother. Let me be there for humanity. Let there be spring again. And Hades basically, after some time, agrees to this. In exchange, she spends half the year with him. So Persephone returns to Earth, flowers bloom, her mother is overjoyed, and the harvest is bountiful once again. But once her time has passed, she returns to spend time with her husband and to help console him through the difficulties that is his job. And man, when I get to Hades and the underworld, you're going to understand how difficult that job really is. But for now, just know that she is devoted to both her mother and her husband. She cares about humanity's survival. She cares that her husband doesn't have a nervous breakdown. She is a very, very caring and wonderful woman, and not some angsty monster who has no real love for humanity or her family. The reason why this gets associated with Virgo is because from the position of Greece, the star sign of Virgo can only be seen half the year. In other words, Persephone is up there with her mother and the gods, watching over humanity, and then she needs to go back down to the netherworld and spend time with her husband. This makes sense in a lot of ways, especially considering many of the drawings of Virgo feature a woman holding a stalk of corn or grain, which again ties into the harvest and things like that, which of course would tie into Persephone and Demeter. So that one makes the most sense to me. Interestingly enough, a goddess of harvest and the fields and what have you being associated with disappearing half the year into the underworld is very reminiscent of the story of Dumuzid, which may have had influence in that story, as other Babylonian gods and myths have had their own influence into Greek mythology, and even beyond that into further mythologies in Europe and the Middle East. Finally, we have the story that actually surprised me. This is a story I had never heard before in all my studies, and therefore, while probably not the accurate story, unless you're in specific regions, I would imagine. It is a very interesting one that I can't wait to share with you. This is the story of Erigone. Erigone is the princess to an African king named Icarius. And one day, Icarius is taking a walk to clear his mind and relax, and a group of drunkards, not knowing he's the king, decide to assault him, and in the process, kill him. On accident, but they still killed him. When they saw his face and realized, oh no, we just got drunk and beat up and killed the king, they drug his body off to the wilderness and buried him, hoping no one would ever find out. Well, time passes, and Erigone gets stressed out. Where's my father? He went on a walk. Why is he not back? The kingdom needs its king. What is going on? She gets her dog and goes on the search for her father. She knows he must be somewhere. Maybe he's been kidnapped. Maybe he got lost. And then she finds his grave. And she is so distraught over the death of her father that she takes her own life. And up in the heavens, Dionysus, god of wine, frivolity, and fertility, looks upon the father and daughter with so much pity that he raises them up into the heavens and makes them constellations. The daughter, beloved and pure, becomes Virgo, and the father becomes Botus, or Butus, depending on how you want to pronounce that. This story is an odd one and probably exists in maybe Northern Africa or parts of the Middle East as the main story. But from my perspective, obviously I feel the Demeter Persephone one makes the most sense, with Astraea making the second most sense as the constellation of Libra, which is connected to justice, and Astraea is connected to justice, and both those signs are very close to each other. So there are ways of kind of making that work as well. Either way, I hope you've enjoyed this exploration into some very interesting and different mythology, because this was kind of an experience for me where I thought this would be something very simple, and it turned out to be way more complex than I had any anticipation of. And I hope you had as much fun listening as I did telling the stories. Next time, we'll be looking at Libra, and after that, it's time for some horror action with some cool monster myths, including some American ones, because I have to. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe. Share this video with your Virgo friends so they can learn the legend and the astrology of what their sign means. Until next time, I'll see you at the tavern.